AITA for leaving the dinner table when my girlfriend insisted I cover her brother's university fees. You can truly understand someone's character by observing the expression they give you when they're convinced you're obligated to hand something over. It's an entitled, self-assured gaze that silently declares, "This belongs to me already. You're merely keeping it temporarily." That exact expression appeared that evening. It was visible on the face of the woman I cherished and on the faces of her parents too. In that quiet instant, the full picture became painfully obvious to me. My name is Caleb. I run a bespoke woodworking company. I transform aged, salvaged timber into custom pieces of furniture. It's a peaceful existence, yet deeply fulfilling. I create items built to endure, full of personality and durability. I believed my bond with my girlfriend, Audra, shared those same qualities. We'd been a couple for 4 full years. We functioned as equals. Finances stayed independent. Though we aimed for shared dreams, I admired her determination and goals. I never saw myself as her financial supporter. I viewed us as collaborators. Or so I believed at the time. Her relatives were constantly around. Her father, Robert, judged his own importance by the size of his investment holdings. Her mother, Carol, was convinced her daughter deserved an existence filled with wealth and ease. Then there was her younger brother, Preston, a 19-year-old who'd never held a real job and treated life like his private amusement park. They acted cordial toward me, but an ongoing sense of appraisal lingered, as though they were forever assessing my financial reliability. One more important detail matters here. My world extends beyond myself. I have a younger sister named Hannah. Roughly 1 year earlier, her husband, my lifelong closest friend, Mark, lost his battle against a relentless form of cancer. He passed, leaving behind 2 wonderful children and an overwhelming pile of hospital expenses that could stagger anyone. Hannah possesses incredible inner strength. She juggles 2 employment positions, stays silent about the hardship, and guards her independence fiercely. I assist whenever possible, quietly covering food costs or settling certain monthly bills, but she firmly rejects anything larger. She's resolute about standing on her own feet. The ongoing difficulty she faces remains a steady, silent pain deep inside me. Last night we gathered at her parents' residence for their regular family meal. The discussion followed its typical pattern. Investment advice from Robert mixed with neighborhood rumors from Carol. Then, once the entree had been cleared, the trap was sprung. Robert gave a deliberate cough, the sign something official was forthcoming. "Caleb," he started. "As you're aware, Preston has gained admission to an extremely elite private institution. We're all bursting with pride." I offered my congratulations to Preston, who merely lifted his shoulders indifferently while staring at his screen. Next, Audra pivoted toward me, resting her palm gently on my forearm, wearing a warm grin that failed to reach her eyes. "We've had some discussions," she explained, nodding toward her parents, "and concluded this presents the ideal moment for you to prove your dedication to our household." I immediately sensed the direction. The ground beneath me seemed to vanish. She pressed forward in a breezy, offhand tone, the way one might request extra napkins. "We'd like you to handle Preston's tuition costs, AT minimum, the opening year." I simply gazed at her in disbelief. 1 year at that institution ran approximately $75,000. Noticing my reaction, her smile grew rigid. Any trace of warmth disappeared, giving way to a steely, uncompromising sharpness. "Pay for my brother's schooling or this relationship ends," she stated quietly but decisively. "It's the very least any genuine man would do for the family he intends to join through marriage." I glanced toward her parents. Both Robert and Carol nodded in agreement. Their expressions mirrored the same expectant certainty. This matter had clearly been deliberated and coordinated. It wasn't an appeal, it was a demand backed by threat. It amounted to blackmail. Suddenly, the truth crystallized. To them, my worth had nothing to do with the affection I held for their daughter, my personal integrity, or the effort I put forth daily. It boiled down solely to my financial resources. I wasn't regarded as a prospective family member. I was simply an asset waiting to be utilized. I chose not to debate. I kept my tone even. I offered no justifications. I merely studied their self-assured, presumptuous expressions. In that gaze, I foresaw the entire path ahead with this woman. A lifetime filled with perpetual requirements, forever needing to validate my value via monetary gestures. Then my thoughts turned to my own sister that I pictured her rising before dawn to start a work shift, then rushing to prepare her children for the day. I imagined her calculating which payments could be deferred just to afford her son fresh footwear. The difference between her dignified hardship and their brazen, grasping insistence struck me so sharply it nearly brought a bitter chuckle that I rose from my seat. I folded my napkin precisely and set it beside my dish. Offering a calm, authentic smile, I exited the dining area without uttering one syllable. Audra's voice followed. Initially puzzled, soon furious, calling my name. I kept moving. I stepped through the front entrance, climbed into my pickup and drove off. That I lacked a fully formed strategy, yet one certainty stood firm. My earnings would indeed provide for a household, just not the one sitting at that table. Update 1 full week has passed since I departed that meal. 7 days of complete quiet from me contrasted with 7 days of mounting frenzy from their side. I appreciate every supportive message received. It reassures me that not everyone treats partnerships like commercial deals. That very night, rather than heading to my own place, I drove directly to Hannah's residence. Though the hour was late, she remained up, seated at her kitchen table amid stacks of documents. Statements, coverage denials, debt notices. She wrestled to organize an unmanageable mess. Seeing me enter, she attempted a courageous mask, yet the weariness in her gaze was unmistakable. The burdens of existence pressed heavily upon her. Conversation stayed minimal. I prepared tea and simply kept her company as she sorted papers. That I observed her children asleep nearby, their expressions serene and unaware of the tempest their mother endured daily on their behalf. I departed before daylight, my determination now forged like iron. First action the following morning. Straight to the bank. 4 years I'd accumulated savings and grown a portfolio. It represented my long-term security. Funds reserved for property, for raising children, for building a shared existence with Audra. I cashed out every portion. The amount was considerable, sufficient to transform someone's circumstances, and transformation was precisely my goal. Meanwhile, texts and calls from Audra's circle poured in relentlessly. Initially filled with outrage and bewilderment, Audra wrote, "What happened last night? Walking away like that was immature. Contact me immediately." Robert messaged, "Caleb, your conduct has left me profoundly let down. You humiliated my daughter and showed disrespect to our household. An apology is required." No responses from me. That day involved meetings with my investment counselor and an attorney to establish a dedicated trust, specifically designated for my sister's children. Around the third day, their approach morphed into bewildered bargaining. "Audra, fine. I understand you felt caught off guard. We ought to have spoken privately beforehand. Still, this would strengthen our joint path ahead. My parents would gain respect for you." Carol added, "Caleb, Audra feels deeply hurt. You realize how important her brother is to her. A true man steps up to care for his loved ones." Hearing "a true man" repeated endlessly began to irritate me intensely. Their interpretation of manhood carried a very steep price tag. I maintained my silence. That I gathered every item Audra kept at my residence. Though never formally cohabiting, she'd left behind considerable belongings. I packed, tagged, and stored them securely in my workspace. I updated all security access codes at home. Afterward, I returned to Hannah's place. Without revealing my intentions, I explained I required her signature on documents concerning a protective fund being created for the children's benefit. Wary of handouts as always, she hesitated, but I presented it strictly as a safeguard measure. She agreed and signed. The following day brought 2 major developments. 1. A trust-issued payment reached the medical center holding most of her deceased husband's outstanding charges, covering the complete remaining sum precisely. 2. A separate payment arrived at her mortgage lender, settling the entire leftover balance on her property. Hannah phoned me. Emotion overwhelmed her voice at first. Words failed. She could only repeat, "Caleb, what have you done?" I explained I'd simply placed capital where it truly belonged, into the sole family that counted. That I reminded her Mark would have wished her to raise their children unburdened by that devastating load. For the first time in 12 months, I heard genuine laughter from her. Nothing sounded sweeter. That same night, I composed my sole reply to Audra. Her messages had grown increasingly frantic throughout the day. Her brother's enrollment deposit deadline loomed, I sent one carefully worded email addressed to her, Preston, and both parents. Subject line, "A true man." The message stated, "You spoke accurately. A genuine man cares for his household, sheltering, defending, and securing their tomorrow. Therefore, the savings I accumulated over years, the exact funds you insisted go toward Preston's schooling, have instead cleared every medical obligation and remaining home loan belonging to my widowed sister and her 2 young ones. I view this as the absolute least I could do. Our partnership has concluded. Tomorrow a delivery service will return all your possessions to your address." 2 attachments followed: official confirmation of zero balance from the hospital and identical proof from the mortgage holder. I pressed send, then immediately blocked every phone number and email account associated with them. The resulting quiet felt liberating. I realized trouble might linger, yet I had shifted its course. Their avarice, presumption, and coercive demand had been redirected toward genuine benefit. Let them seethe. My priority lay with real family. Update 2 weeks have elapsed since that email went out. My silence persists unbroken. Yet the consequences of my choice have spread farther than anticipated. Though I've had no direct contact with Audra or her relatives, accounts have reached me indirectly. Initially came explosive fury. A shared acquaintance reported Audra's total breakdown. She hurled every insult imaginable, claiming betrayal and theft of her resources. Robert apparently contacted his attorney in a rage, ranting about possible lawsuits over mental anguish or implied agreement violation. The attorney, evidently sensible, must have explained the absence of legal footing, since no formal action followed. Their outrage stemmed from a bizarre conviction that my assets had already been allocated to them. They resented not my assistance to Hannah, but rather that their intended target had suddenly become inaccessible. Rage eventually gave way to a coordinated character attack. Audra and Carol spread a twisted account to whoever would listen. In their version, I emerged as erratic and heartless, someone who teased Audra with stability then cruelly withdrew it. They alleged I'd deprived their household of opportunity by redirecting funds to my supposedly lazy, ungrateful sister. The tactic failed completely. Here the narrative takes an intriguing turn. Hannah resides in the identical small community as Audra's parents. Word travels quickly in such places. The details of Mark's death and Hannah's ongoing challenges were already familiar locally. She's widely respected as a dignified, resilient figure who met adversity with poise. Once word circulated of my financial intervention, and large debt payoffs rarely stay secret in tight-knit towns, the community responded powerfully. Hearts were touched. Tales of a devoted brother aiding his grieving sister during crisis became local conversation. A regional publication even featured a brief, uplifting article on kinship and mutual support. Per my preference, identities stayed anonymous, though it referenced a nearby craftsman. Picture being Robert and Carol. You've devoted decades projecting an image of civic virtue, serving on non-profit panels, contributing publicly, treasuring social prestige. Suddenly, a heartwarming account surfaces praising a resident's extraordinary selflessness. Simultaneously, your daughter circulates claims labeling that same resident heartless for refusing to divert those funds toward her idle, spoiled sibling. The contradictions became glaring. Residents began piecing events together. Whispers of the dinner table ultimatum gradually surfaced. Audra's effort to vilify me collapsed disastrously. She appeared not merely selfish, she seemed callous, attempting to reroute aid meant for orphans towards subsidizing her brother's leisure lifestyle. Robert and Carol faced deep embarrassment. Acquaintances began distancing themselves. The prestige they prized most had crumbled entirely. Their true nature stood revealed. Audra's circumstances deteriorated sharply. She continues residing with her parents. Associates from her affluent circle withdrew. The controversy proved too distasteful. She became socially ostracized. Preston, the intended beneficiary, never enrolled at his elite school. He now attends the nearby junior college. Reports indicate his parents now require him to seek part-time employment to cover personal expenses. Apparently, they've belatedly chosen to instill financial awareness, only after losing access to external funding. Roughly 1 week ago, I spotted Audra at the supermarket. She stood several registers away. She appeared diminished, less assured. Our gazes briefly connected. No resentment rose, nor sympathy, only indifference. To me, she had become merely someone from a closed chapter. She averted her eyes first. The most rewarding outcome remains my sister's transformation. The difference feels profound. Freed from crushing obligations, she carries herself with renewed lightness and joy. She quit her second position, allowing precious hours with her children. The persistent fatigue lines have faded. Her smiles return frequently. My decision didn't merely erase debts. It restored her existence and returned their mother fully to my niece and nephew. That defines genuine manhood. It refuses to bankroll entitlement or arrogance. Constructs lasting value. It safeguards those held dearest. It commits resources to authentic, enduring foundations. My tomorrow belongs to the family tied by devotion and trust, not ledgers or ultimatums. That base cannot fracture. Final update: half a year has passed since I exited that household and rejected their excessive expectations. The chaos has faded. The existence I've shaped stands calm, resilient, and completely mine. I share this concluding note because the tale has arrived at a fuller, more rewarding resolution than I foresaw. My days feel solid. My workshop flourishes. Weekends find me assisting Hannah with home improvements on the property that truly belongs to her now, or simply enjoying time with my niece and nephew. Witnessing their security and contentment, unshadowed by looming bills, offers the finest possible reward. Hannah thrives remarkably. She has even begun seeing someone new. A kind, caring individual who cherishes both her and the children. Her personal renewal stands as the greatest triumph here. Regarding Audra's household, their narrative remains a subdued, self-inflicted downfall. The reputational damage proved enduring, not temporary. Their social environment shifted permanently. Robert and Carol have withdrawn noticeably. Community esteem formed their core identity. Losing it struck deeply. They ceased organizing gatherings or participating in civic roles. Exposure shrank their circle dramatically. Preston, the former aspiring elite student, remains enrolled locally. Whispers suggest he struggles significantly. Unaccustomed to effort or accountability, real-world demands have jolted him. He now faces lessons his parents neglected for far too long. Audra's arc completes the symmetry. Following prolonged joblessness and isolation, she eventually emailed me. No entitlement or remorse appeared, only a humble request. She mentioned extensive reflection and current counseling. She acknowledged her grave errors and how distorted priorities had shaped her. She sought no reconciliation, merely dialogue to comprehend her own conduct that I considered carefully and long. The former version of myself, always eager to mend, might have consented. That person no longer exists. I've accepted that certain fractures defy repair. More crucially, her healing belongs solely to her, not my responsibility. I left the message unanswered and removed it. Her path toward awareness proceeds independently. I hold no further role in it. Last week delivered the ideal closing note. A letter arrived from a regional endowment supporting youngsters who've lost a parent. Inside lay a gratitude message. It noted an unnamed contribution, made honoring my sister's departed husband, sufficient to endow one complete annual scholarship for 10 consecutive years. The donors, described as a community household, aimed to celebrate authentic familial devotion. I phoned Hannah. She knew nothing of it. Realization dawned quickly. Robert and Carol stood behind it. A frantic, visible bid to salvage their tarnished image. Channeling funds toward precisely the principle my actions had highlighted. No bitterness stirred, only calm satisfaction. Walking away that single evening accomplished far more than personal or sibling rescue. It compelled a group accustomed to receiving to finally contribute. Having sought to extract my resources for their ambitions, they ultimately issued the payment themselves, supporting a deserving young person, all in a vain effort to masquerade as honorable kin. True retribution never centered on ruin, focused on creation. Ultimately, one choice's aftereffects generated vastly more positivity than anticipated. They pressed for minimal obligation. I elevated the benchmark instead. If this resonated, feel free to comment below and consider subscribing for future narratives. Until the next one.